Welcome back, Soulfire, to another amazing week. So excited to continue our series on credit card faith and to continue further learning about Abraham and Sarah. And so this week we're going to be continuing in Genesis, starting in chapter 18. We'll kind of work our way into chapter 21. Not all of those scriptures. We'll just kind of jump back and forth. But in the last couple of lessons, we talked about how God had promised Abraham to be a father of a great nation, and that he would give Abraham a child in order to fulfill that promise. Today we're going to talk about the faith that it takes to be patient for the blessing that God has in our lives, or for our lives. Most people nowadays feel that credit card faith, the religion of instant gratification. We kind of talked a little bit about that last week. That if they don't want, that they should be able to get what they want right away. But as we have seen, it's not always that. It's never that way between us and God. It's about creating a life with God on ongoing trust and reliance. Every time God told Abraham to do something, Abraham obeyed. And when God said would he be a father of a great nation, Abraham still had faith and believed, knowing even though he didn't have a child. But sometimes people get impatient when waiting for God's blessing, like Abraham and Sarah. Like we talked about last time. They took matters into their own hands, and between Abraham and Sarah and Hagar having a son for Abraham, and Abraham and Sarah not waiting on God's blessing. They didn't wait on the timing that God had for them, and they just made a mess of things. So in Genesis chapter 18, we're gonna kind of jump in here, and we'll read a little bit and we'll discuss it. So Genesis chapter 18 verse 1 we're going to start out with, okay? And the Lord appeared unto him in the plains of Mamre, and he sat in the tent doors in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and lo, 3 men stood by him. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them from the tent door, and bowed himself toward the ground, and said, My Lord, if now I have found favor in thy sight, pass not away, I pray thee, from thy servant. Let a little water, I pray you, be fetched, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will fetch a morsel of bread, and comfort your hearts. After that ye shall pass on, for therefore are ye come to your servant. And they said, So do as thou hast said. And Abraham hastened into the tent unto Sarah, and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, knead it, and make cakes upon the hearth. And Abraham ran unto the herd, and fetched a calf tender and good, and gave it unto a young man, and he hastened and dressed it. He took butter and milk and the calf which he had dressed, and set it before them, and stood by them under the tree, and they did eat. And they said unto him, Where is Sarah thy wife? He said, Behold, in the tent. And he said, I will certainly return unto thee according to the time of life. And lo, Sarah thy wife shall have a son. And Sarah heard it in the tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age. And it ceased to be with Sarah after the matter of women. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also. And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child, which am old. Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee, and according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. So, in this scripture, it talks about the Lord appeared. So what's basically happening is Jesus had appeared to Abraham and Sarah with two angels with him, and telling Abraham he was going to have a son, and God felt that he needed to send Jesus himself, in order to prove a point, in order to show Abraham that he was serious. But of course, Sarah, with them being so old, she started to lose hope, and she knew that she wasn't. She in her heart figured that she would never have kids. And so when Jesus appeared, she kind of doubted. She was doubtful, and she didn't believe, and so when it come to pass that it happened, she probably kind of felt a little dumb, because she lost faith, and it wasn't. She just, and so we're going to continue into chapter 21, and we'll start with verse 1 on that part. So, and the Lord visited Sarah, and he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, and at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son, Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God had made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah would have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. So, Abraham and Sarah, like I said, they were old. And like I said before, she probably felt dumb for doubting God's ability, and the power that God has. God could have ended any point in Abraham and Sarah's life, let them have children, but God wanted to make a point. God wanted to make sure that everybody knew that because they were so old, that it was physically impossible for them to have children. And so in that case, he wanted the people around them to know that it was a miracle from God, that the only reason they were able to have a son was because of God's power and the ability that God has, and what God is able to do. And so and that, making sure that knowing that people knew that old people can't have kids, right? It's physically impossible. So knowing that God is with them and God took care of them. So the whole point of this is I want you guys to know that being patient is the best key. We don't always get, God always isn't going to give us what we ask for right away. We have to be patient. We have to wait on God. God has a plan, and he knows when to act on his plan. And for Abraham and Sarah, his plan, it probably didn't involve Hagar and her having a son, but it did involve them being old and him God trying to prove a point to the people that so that they would know that he's God and there's nobody greater than God. So, just if you take anything away from it, just be patient. Is what I'm trying to say. Know that God's with you. Know that God's always there, taking care of you. He's watching over you. You just know that blessings sometimes take time, and don't just expect it to be instant. So I love you guys. I hope you guys have a great week. Come on back next week, and we will continue our series. Love you guys. Later.